Hi, my name is Tamara, and you are watching Things Even a Monkey Should Know. Hello, hello! Thank you so much for joining me again today. As you know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I am not a professional anything except artist, but I have figured out there are a number of things around my house and out in the yard and on my cars that I can do myself, and often save myself time, money, and aggravation. So hopefully you have saved those things too. Today, we're going to be repairing holes in mortar in a kitchen floor. And what we will be doing will, for the most part, apply also to holes in the mortar in a brick wall, if you have some things in the brick of your house that needs to be repaired. And I have nothing more to say about that other than let's get started. Well, of course, we're going to go over the things that we're going to need today. First, well, obviously you need your brick floor that has the holes in it, or your brick wall that has the holes in it that you are wanting to patch. Now keep in mind, if you have a wall that is tumbling down, this is not the video for you. You need structural work done, and we are not doing structural work. We are doing aesthetic work, basically. We are patching holes probably up to about this big with mortar today. Now, that being said, we got that part out of the way. You're going to need a hammer, probably a screwdriver, flat blade screwdriver, anyone? And in addition to, maybe some stilettos. Now, you don't want to use nice stilettos for this. You want to use stilettos that are on their way out or that you don't care much about. Now, if you're not well practiced in walking or running in these, you may want to have someone around to wear them for you. You're going to need a shop vac or a vacuum cleaner of some description that has fairly decent suction and that you don't mind it getting a lot of mortar dust and whatever junk has been building up in the holes in your floor for the last 6 to 8 months or however long it's been that they have been needing to be repaired. You are going to need a bag of mortar, and hooray for us that they now make baby bags of mortar so that we don't have to buy those big 50-pound bags. We also don't have to buy the mortar and the sand separately anymore because it comes pre-mixed. Hooray for us. You're going to need a spray bottle, and you can just have plain old water in yours. I have a little bit of an organic cleaner in mind just because I like the smell of it, but plain water is great. You're going to need one of those plastic containers that is running around your pantry that doesn't have a lid, but you don't want to throw it away because that's just being wasteful. Guess what? Today is its day to be useful. So get one of those, and depending on how many holes you're having to patch, you may need one bigger than this. Oh, I had this in my hand too. You're also going to need a plastic scraper or spatula or something plastic and a little bit flexible that makes it easy to mix things and to spread, something you can spread with. You're going to need paper towels or a rag that you hate that you'll throw away after today. You're going to need gloves of some description. You can use kitchen gloves, you can use nitrile, you can use vinyl, you can use latex, whatever. You should not be doing anything really rough on these gloves, so they shouldn't develop holes. It's mostly just to keep your skin barricaded from that mortar mix because that is still a concrete product and it will make your skin really rough and potentially give you little burns. So it's really better not to get it on your skin. You're also going to need knee pads if you're going to be doing extensive work on the ground. And you can do knee pads, or you can do like one of those little foam things that I think they sell in the gardening department that is also a cushion for your knees. Believe me, your knees will thank you if you are kneeling on a brick floor for any period of time. Well, among other things, this floor needs to be refinished, but before it can be refinished, it has to have all the holes fixed. Now, before I moved in here, this floor was done or installed by someone who didn't know what they were doing, and there were a lot of dry spots in the mortar which turned into cave-ins and holes. And I did not think that I could do brick work, and so I hired someone to fix those holes and cave-ins. And guess what? They didn't know what they were doing either, even though they said they did. And so those cave-ins and holes came back almost immediately. And I thought, well, I can sure do better than this. So all those gray spots that are light gray that you can see are the spots where I have fixed the holes in the mortar. But unfortunately, some holes still keep popping up. So you are going to help me find those and fix those today. And in the process, hopefully you will find and fix your own also. Well, if you're wanting to find all the holes in your mortar, one thing you can do is you can go around, give little taps for all the areas, and especially if you have seen that, like I've noticed that it, particularly around the corners of the bricks, seem to be a really big issue. So that's where I really pay a lot of attention. You can take really anything. Well, look at that. Yep. I figured there was one coming in right there. So I would go ahead, and I'm not trying to dig out mortar that doesn't have anything wrong with it. All that I am trying to do is just get out the dry stuff. You see how dry this is right in here? This is not anything that I chopped up with my hammer. This was just waiting. There's even, look, there's even a loose chunk down in there. This was just waiting to cave in when the right person or heel stepped on it. Now, if you want to, you might also get a flat blade screwdriver and take after some of this stuff to make sure that you can get all of the loose stuff out. So digging out this old loose stuff is exactly what I have done all over this floor. And you'll be able to tell the difference in what is still good mortar and what is bad. I am digging actually back up under this top layer. So this top layer actually dried fine, and just whatever was underneath it did not cure well. So I don't know enough about bricklaying to tell you exactly what happened, except that I know that it should not, nothing should cure like this. And there is another brick floor in the house that was done by someone else who clearly knew what they were doing and is older than this and has had no problems whatsoever. There's that big chunk. So basically, you should be able to see little suspect spots, and don't whack them hard, because of course you can make anything crumble if you whack it hard enough. But if you see spots, like here's one, and that is just crumbling up that side right there, then go ahead and get it loosened up down to where it's solid. And don't try to pick out the solid. There is no good reason to do that. But you do want to get out all of this excess. Now, you can go around and you can do this with the hammer to do your searching and your digging with the hammer, or well, did you all have fun doing that big party for finding the mortar? Yeah, the broken mortar? Well, that'll certainly find it. Heels are the best way to find that stuff. I'm not kidding. It looks like, since I've already done this quite a few times over the last few months now, found one big spot right there, and Jack is very enthusiastic about all of this. And I managed to get this spot just a little more cleaned out. Let me double check the rest of my floor. I think Jack and I only found, a handful of spots. This one isn't even that bad, but since I am fixing them anyway, I figure I might as well go ahead and loosen this up, clean it out, and fix it. Now, if you have a whole bunch of spots, or you have spots that are few and far between, you might go ahead, in case you are afraid that you're going to miss some of them whenever you're coming back to fix them, you might just go ahead and take a little piece of blue painter's tape. I know I didn't mention that and stuff we might need today, but it doesn't have to be the painter's tape. You could also take masking tape. You can take a rock from outside. I don't care, just something to mark your spots. Now when you have a bunch of really big chunks like this, I would go ahead and just pick up the really big pieces and to put them in the garbage, because there's no reason to be sucking up those basically small rocks with your vacuum cleaner. But then after that, you can totally go after that with the vacuum. And I'm assuming you all know how to use a vacuum cleaner, so I am just gonna speed right through this. So I'm assuming that you now have those holes in your floor all cleaned out and ready to go. And we're feast or famine here, since I wound up with a little more to do than I thought I was. Well, I either have a really small container or a really big one. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up in the really big one. And there are ratio instructions on here, like, you know, ratio of water to this stuff. But I actually have found that for the floor, I like to do this myself or do my ratios myself, because I really like it to be a bit like a cake batter. And now if you're doing this for a wall, you're going to want it, oh, I wonder it wasn't coming out, it's double bagged. If you're doing this for a wall, you're going to want it a little bit thicker so that it doesn't run out of your wall. But I want to make sure that this can run into all the cracks in my floor effectively and be fairly level. So I like to do it outside also, just because since we do have a little bit of dust with this concrete sort of mix, try to make this where you can see it, then I would rather not have this dust in the house. If it bothers you, you should definitely wear some breathing protection. You notice whenever I'm adding water to this, especially since I'm not measuring, I'm adding just a little bit at a time, and see, a little bit goes a long way, and it didn't take me long to actually get too much water right there, so I'm going to add a little more powder. It's a little more complicated when you're trying to talk while you're doing this. I know you all know that. This is multitasking at its best, or at its worst, I'm not sure. I'm going to add a little bit more powder again, because I'm calling it powder, it's mortar, because while I want it runny, I don't want it quite that runny. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect for what we want for a floor. See how it sticks on the plastic thing, but it also falls off pretty easily. That's a good start. Now, depending on how much you're doing, I'm going to show you a little trick that I picked up, and you can use a gallon-sized bag for what I'm about to do, but it's going to burst before you are finished if you have this much mortar. But you can put a little bit of mortar into, say, a quart-sized bag. And I know, again, I didn't mention this in the things that we need today, because this is not something you have to have. This is just something that could make your life a little bit easier. I'm going to seal that up. I still have some mortar in my bucket too. And then I'm going to, in this, the side that the mortar is not in, I'm going to cut a little hole. So what did we essentially just do? We just kind of made an icing bag from mortar. I'm going to go ahead and spray my holes with my water or my water solution, because I want to go ahead and just get those good and wet so that the surrounding mortar doesn't just immediately suck up everything that I'm putting into it. And then if you're using this method where you just made yourself kind of a little icing bag, you can just squeeze it in there, pat it down. Keep in mind that it's going to shrink a little bit, so you don't really want to have it below the level where you really want it to be, since it'll shrink up. And then we'll just move around doing it like this. Now, if it is not convenient for you to use this method, well, I guess let me finish this hole first, then we'll look at the other method. Then you can do just basically scooping and wiping or shoving in there. And this is a lot like spreading icing on a cake, but you just want to make sure that you get it all the way down in there. Now, depending on what I am working on, I like to use both of these. I like to use the icing bag really for smaller holes. So this probably was not the best hole to show you as an example because it's a bit small. And I like to use this scoop and wipe sort of method on the bigger holes. I totally forgot to spray anything in there, so look at how easily that lifts out. I bet you all caught that before I did. If you do what I just did, it's fine. It's not going to kill your job that you're doing. Just scoop out what you just did, put it back in your bucket, and go ahead and spray the area and then start over. Now look, you have to admit, that is one of the more fun jobs we have done. We got to have a dance party, we got some exercise, we got to watch my dog look at me like I was a total nut job. I mean, all that was great. Now, 3 main things to remember whenever you do this job. The first is to clear out all of the old holes. Make sure that you get all the dirt and the old mortar, the old powdery bad mortar out of them, leaving anything intact that is solid. Because if you don't do that and you just put your patch directly on top of the dirt and the loose stuff that's there, guess what? All that your patch does is adhere to that loose stuff, and that makes it very prone to cracking, breaking, and just popping right back out within a few weeks. The other thing to remember is to always spray water in those holes before you put your new mortar in there, so that all the moisture doesn't instantly get sucked out of that patch mortar that you're doing, and then it doesn't get the chance to cure properly. The third thing is to have fun. That's really it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please go ahead and do that now, and I look forward to seeing you for more fun soon.